We want to apologize up front for disturbing you again and infiltrating your houses with our broadcast. And this is Street Scene Power Hour with host Larry Ward and Rick Guerrera. I'm Greg Roten, and we have a lot to get to because we have so much to get to. We have one guest because there's so much information and so many stories packed into this, and we have a lot to get to. So let's start off. I want to start off with Larry. Let's discuss what's been going on with motorcycle world on your end of it. And then we'll get to Rick, and then I'm usually last as usual. So Larry, let's talk a little bit.
We've had the people from Motorcycle Sport Touring Association on before, and they're finishing up the year with rallies across America. And a lot of my friends are in Texas right now doing the last part of those rides. I was hoping to get out today, but I got a little bit of the sniffles, so I didn't want to take a chance. I'm heading to Detroit. Yeah, I'm taking my grandson and my son to Detroit Sunday to watch the Lions and the Packers. So he's a big Packer fan. He's 10, so I don't know, but it's a good time to go. Yeah,
a lot to learn, right?
I did explain to him why you can't bet with or against the Cleveland Browns. So coming up to the Cleveland Browns game, I said, here's a perfect example of why they will break your heart if you were ever a Cleveland Browns fan. So I laid out, I go, they have a quarterback nobody knows. The wide receivers are hurt. They got one guy or two guys on defense. They got a bunch of injuries. They got this, they got that. And I said, and that's what we call the perfect storm, because all of that adds up in the real world to the Cleveland Browns beating the other team on Monday night. And I said, and you watch. And boy,
Cincinnati.
They blew them up.
Yeah.
So
they sure did.
And I'm working on a couple modifications on the Himalayan. I'm changing out the foot pegs and some other stuff on it. I think it's going to be, somebody said it might almost be 80 degrees one day next week, but I'd like to take off for an overnighter down south.
Filled with 70s.
Yeah.
We're going to have 70 degrees like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So
I installed
November?
I installed a quarter fairing on the Sportster. So that was good. And so I had two bikes that are ready to travel. I'm going to sell my electric bike because I never ride it. So if anybody's interested in an electric bicycle, it's one of those fat tire adventure bikes.
People like those, Larry. People like those.
Let me tell you, it's called a Class 3.
More and more of them.
You don't have to pedal it. You can just throttle it, and it'll go up to 28 miles an hour.
That's pretty dang good. How long does that last?
A couple hours.
Okay.
Yeah, they say about 80 miles.
Oh, that's not bad. Really,
No.
I wanted to tell you this, Larry. wanted to mention this to you. A buddy of mine just bought a new Royal Enfield, and he absolutely loves it.
What did he buy? Which one?
Beats me. I'd have to look.
Was it a 650 twin or a single cylinder?
It was a single cylinder.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but he is just, he's been a motorcycle guy. He's really into the sport bikes, but he's gotten a little older, but he's like, he loves that better more than anything in the world. I meant to tell you.
What if it's a Himalayan on off-road?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you're right. Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's what I got.
Okay. Yeah. He just bought one, and I think they had like $1,000 off special. And he's like, I couldn't pass that up. He goes, I was not planning to go get a bike. He just happened to stop in and look, and they had that special. He goes, I walked out with it. I couldn't pass that deal up. Yeah,
Motozilias that we've had Jim Iacozzelli on, the owner of Motozili, and they're great. I bought maybe 6 motorcycles and 2 ATVs off of him, including my recent Himalayan last year. So
yeah, okay, yeah,
so
that's good.
But I'm looking forward to a couple of warm days still. Get out and ride. And if you're listening or you're going to be watching either or, just remember that it's cold in the morning and it warms up in the afternoon, a lot of dew. And especially with the fog like it was this morning, be careful out there if you're riding your bike to work.
And soup this morning.
And you got to watch the water under the leaves because it'll stay there and you're liable to slide. So
that's
just be cautious.
Even with driving cars, you got to watch that because you get into a bunch of wet leaves on the road, and you hit those brakes, you're spinning around because there's nothing to stop you.
And the deer too. The deer are out full.
Deer are bad,
right
yeah.
now, mating
Well, the
season.
rut's going on till
They call it
the
rut.
third week.
Rut.
Yeah.
The rut. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're going
So you
deer.
gotta be careful with that too.
Mm-hmm. Well, I tell you what, we got to get the Rick story. So, Larry, get your insult mode set. Jerry, join in with us because we're going to have fun with Rick right now. Go ahead, Rick.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I'm not going to say anything. How's that?
Oh, then I'll tell them. I already know the story, so you might as well just doom yourself.
I watch the podcast on YouTube once in a while, and I feel like I'm in the Brady Bunch, the way the blocks are here.
Well, you know, we could change that. We could also
Is that the story?
yeah, we could do something else.
Yeah,
You know, like let's set us up like this.
Yeah.
If you're watching the broadcast.
Ah, yeah. We're in the stadium. Hey.
Anyway, we're gonna stop that. Anyway, go ahead, Rick.
Okay. Hey, this weekend, my girlfriend and I, we went to Millersburg, Ohio.
Sure.
You know where that's at?
Awesome place. Yeah, beautiful
It's
scenery.
It's a beautiful place out there. It's Amish
Right.
country to the max. And there's some beautiful homes out there. And those Amish, I'll tell you, they must have a lot of money, some of those homes and everything. Just outstanding. A lot of acreage out there, cows and horses.
And lions and tigers and
bears.
Yeah.
Horses.
We even seen a camp. We saw some llamas and we saw a camel too, believe it or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
They
have a little of everything there.
A lot of horse and buggies.
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of horse and buggies. I even saw a buggy repair shop. I said, look at that. I don't know why wouldn't they, you know?
Yeah, should have pulled your car in and say, "Could you fix this?" No, they probably would have.
I fixed my tire. All
right, what'd you do out there, though?
Please. And what the whole thing was, my girlfriend loves horses. She grew up with horses when she was younger, and she said, on my bucket list, we're getting older, she goes, I want to go and ride a horse again. So her daughter gave her this gift certificate to this hotel in this horse ranch over in Millersburg. And she said, we're going horseback riding. And I go, oh boy. I said, you're going to go, not me. And I was so scared. I was so scared. I'd never rode a horse before. And, but I'll tell you what, it was a beautiful weekend. It was like 62, 74. Oh, I'm sorry, 62, 64 degrees. Just a perfect fall day. A lot of the leaves were just changing. And it was just beautiful there. So we go to ride the horses, and my girlfriend's making fun of me because I couldn't get on the horse. And I said,
Rick couldn't get on the horse.
I said, give me the stool. I said, give me the stool there. I need a stool to get on.
A stool.
It was up there, you know. Just wait till you hit 69 years old. See how you do.
We have a horse, so I get it.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. You do. Yeah. So I was very scared. I was very scared. I didn't know what to expect. And I'm going, oh my God, what's going to happen here? Am I going to break my neck or something? So they said, you want a helmet? And my girlfriend's laughing at me. And I said, yeah, I need a helmet. I should have sent you some pictures of it.
Yeah. I should have put, maybe I'll put them in.
I need a helmet.
Yeah.
So that's it? That's it?
I just wanted to get the horse jokes going. So,
and then once I got on the horse, it was fine. It was just like the horses are like in cruise control. You know, you get on them, they just follow each other, and it was really neat.
I'll tell you what,
went a little faster.
You're lucky because mostly when you get on a horse, and I had a similar story, and when you get on a horse and you're scared, they somehow know that, and then they decide to screw with you.
Yeah.
I still have the wedgie marks from 30 years ago from when the horse took off on me. And I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, scared the crap out of me. I'll never ride a horse again. Never.
Oh, man.
You know what, guys? Once I mounted it, I was fine because those horses are like in cruise control. You really don't have to do much. They showed you everything before you did everything. I told them I never rode one before, and they just follow each other. You know, once in a while you got to pull the reins back to slow them down or give them a little kick, then move them up faster. But they just go with the flow. You know, it was pretty nice.
Yeah, it must have been pretty tame.
Yeah, because I
Oh
told
yeah,
Rick,
they were.
I told Rick this story. My grandfather he was a legitimate cowboy out in Arizona. He owned 6 ranches, and when he
Six
was
ranches.
yeah he he raised cattle, and we used to go out there and help him round up cattle, and roping and all sorts of stuff when we were kids.
Do you know
And
how to rope?
yeah, yeah,
Really?
yeah, we used to rope cattle and used to put them and
Uh-huh.
brand them and all that stuff. Anyway,
Wow.
the one thing is he would half break his horses. So the first thing he'd tell you is get on and hang on till the horse calms down. And then, you're
Uh-huh.
not thinking of it. Yeah, he'd half break them because you get on and you better hold on to the reins and get your feet in the stirrups because they're going and they're
Yep.
going to take off
Yeah.
until you start pulling the reins and kicking them and
Right.
getting them to slow down. Yeah, yeah, because it was, you learned the hard way how to ride a horse out there.
Mhm.
But yeah, I just wanted to move on to the horse jokes with Rick. You've resorted. You've sick of riding motorcycles, sick of driving cars because now you have to resort to riding horses. But it's cheaper that way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was fun though.
Yeah.
We had a real good time, and it was just a really neat place to
Good.
you ever get a chance to go there. It's worth it.
Well, I got one quick story for you. I took the nosedive. I put my cars away, put them in storage, in my garage actually. But I was like, well, this winter I'm going to tear the Caprice engine apart and start. I got a new cam, new heads for it, and going to do it right this time. So I'm like, man, it runs so good now, but it's just gutless. So I'm like, let me take it for one more drive. Well, I'm glad I did because you know what? I was sitting there teeter-tottering. It ran so crappy. I'm like, good. I'm tearing it apart now because it just gave me the
Might be the
confidence.
gas.
It was horrible. I don't know the carburetor. I
Yeah.
rebuilt the carburetor. I think it's got a clogged jet in it. I could barely get it out of the
Yeah.
drive. I'm like, good, fine. Back it in the garage. Let's get it busy. Let's start tearing her down. But
That a 305?
355.
350.
So,
Okay.
355.
yeah, it's a bored out 350 on it. So it's got the original 350 block, but it's been bored. And but that was built in 92. So there's, it's tired. It's very tired.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know what, Larry, we want to welcome Jerry Young. He's kind of a legend in the motorcycling world. And I've been reading up on Jerry a little bit. And you know what a history Jerry's got in, going on. Larry, introduce Jerry and give us a little background.
Okay.
Larry.
I'm having trouble here for a minute. So hold on 1 second.
All right. Yep. Well, we got, like I said, we got Jerry Young with us. And
Okay,
go ahead,
I'm
brother.
ready.
Go ahead, Larry.
Yeah. All right. I'd like to welcome Jerry Young to Armstrong Street Scenes Power Hour. Jerry, welcome to the show and glad to have you, buddy.
Thank you so much.
Well, let's talk about the humble beginnings of the world champion, Jerry Young. A lot of people don't realize a little bit about trials and that. But first, before we get into that particular discipline, I'd like to talk to you about how you got into motorcycling, because you've been doing it a long time, boy.
Yeah, Route 15 goes by my house, and there was this gas station, and this guy stopped with a 650 Bonneville, and I just wanted to have a ride, and I don't know why he even let me have a ride. It's like I didn't have any experience, so I took it for a ride downtown, and it started to rain, and so the streets were wet, like you're talking about the wet leaves and stuff. So I come up to this stop sign, and the guy said, "Now keep it running," he said, "because it doesn't like to idle." So coming up to this red light, I'm gearing down. I get down into first gear, and I remember what he said. So I gave it a little gas, and it lurched. and then I got on the rear brake and the front brake, and it went down. And here I am down on the blacktop, and I look up, and here's this lady standing on the curb looking at me, and I let out the clutch, and it spins around a half a turn. I stand it up, the light turns green, and it's like I do this. So that was really my first god awful cool ride.
And you came back to it.
Yeah. Got
But
back on the horse again, huh?
The reason I got into bikes, my brother-in-law invited me to the Coliseum in New York City, and they had sports cars and motorcycles. And here stood this big, fat, wide tire, and it went up to a V8 engine, and then there was a seat on the top. Now, no one's going to be able to ride this, but it looked cool. I looked at all the Porsches and the motorcycles and Triumphs, and I said, I got to get a bike when I get home. So I came home, started looking in the newspaper, and I wanted a 500 or a 650 Bonneville, and nothing was available. So here's this little 200 Cub that was available, and I just didn't even want to look at it. So one of those nice sunshiny days, I decided to give this guy a call, stopped and looked at this Cub, orange and white gas tank. And so I decided to take it for a ride. And that happened to be this little bike right here, if you can see it.
Yep.
Okay.
Beautiful.
And
So how old were you, Jer?
what was that?
How old were you?
How old were you at the time?
Oh, I don't know, 20, somewhere around 20.
Okay.
And
Young chap.
so at any rate, I took it for a ride. I brought it back, and the guy wanted $550 for it, and it had 550 miles on it. And he said, "You want to take it for another ride?" So I took it for a longer ride this time. I came back. I just had to. I couldn't find anything wrong with it.
Yeah.
And my wife, she wanted to ride too. So it was a team bike for her and I for quite a while. And then one day I met up with some guys that rode in the woods. And they're going into this stream and they'll climb up the bank. And now that's kind of like trials riding, but well, we just did it. And of course, I ended up flipping it over backwards a couple of times, learn how to do this. And after I took a few spills, and I just kept getting better. So that's how my whole career started.
And that was back a year. How long ago, years wise, was that when you started doing that?
Well, let's see. I was 20. I was born in 40, so it would be 1960.
Okay.
No, that's a 67 Triumph Cub. So
I was going to ask you what that was.
it had to be around 1968.
Okay.
Mhm. So that was a Triumph Cub.
Triumph Cub,
Yeah.
200 cc's.
For a lot of people that don't know, that is the first iteration of what became a long line of single-cylinder Triumph motorcycles that ended up with 250 cc both on and off road. But it's amazing because nowadays a lot of people wouldn't think to take a 200 cc single-cylinder bike and put a passenger on it and ride it around. It just
Really, that doesn't
seem like it was difficult. But Jerry,
Mhm.
that particular Cub has now taken. By the way, he still owns it. We're going to show you a picture of it.
No kidding.
In a little bit, but
Yep.
Jerry, I want you to explain to them because in 1972 you became the national America's Observed Trials champion. So
Right.
for people that may not know what trials is, TRIALS, trials. So could you explain that discipline and the evolution of that in America, how it has progressed now?
Well, the first trials I ever rode, I rode some hare scrambles and a couple of enduros, and I teamed up with these other two guys, and they were good enduro riders, Class B, as a matter of fact. And so I invited them down, and they showed me what they could do. They had knobby tires on, and it might have even had studs in the tire. But at any rate, after we went to the enduro, they said, well, we're going to a trials next week down in Candytown, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And I said, what's a trials? And they explained the fact that they ribbon off a right and left-hand boundary and start and end gates, and the organizer decides where he wants you to ride. And they have classes from novice, intermediate, or it was first when it started out, it was novice, amateur, and expert. It was 3 classes. And I entered the novice class, and I had a 2.5-gallon gas tank, a big seat. It wasn't a real trials bike, but I wanted to ride a trials. I rode some enduros and air scrambles, but at the end of the day, I came in 4th place in the novice class.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm thinking all the way home, I thought, oh boy, that's pretty cool. And I went back 2 weeks later, they had another trials, came in 1st place.
Cool.
And I got another 1st place. And it's like, I really like trials.
I'm really not too bad at this, huh?
Yeah,
Really.
you were a natural,
Well,
Jerry.
I had a piece of property. I just got finished building my house, and I said, now it's time for me to have some fun. And of course, my wife helped build the house, and she happened to be a motorcycle rider too. So when I got off that bike, she would go visit all her friends, and I'd get it back. I'd go down and have coffee with the boys, and it was an all-around bike. I'd put my kids on the back, and it's like, it was an everything bike.
Yeah.
Well, finally, I decided I'm going to stick to one thing, and that would be trials. And so I started messing around with the frame. This is the way it ended up, but this is one of I took the gas tank and I put it way to the back. So I got all the weight back where I get as much traction as I can. And then I'm jumping over a log. And so anyway, here's one of the earlier ones too. I decided that to put the gas tank back here is stupid, because when you start to climb
Looks
hill,
quite uncomfortable.
Yeah.
well, no,
You stand up.
This is kind of like, yeah, you're always standing up, but I
Oh,
put all the weight
okay.
back here on the rear tire, but the gas doesn't like to run uphill to the carburetor when you're climbing a steep
Yeah.
hill.
Get some.
That's a bad idea. So I ended up putting this little piece of, I made this gas tank also, and I took a piece of sheet metal and I formed it into a circle, and I made it smaller at this end. So it ended up being a cone, and then I just clumped off both ends. And so I rode around with this little
Could
tube.
you
It holds
show that, bring it up so the camera can see.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it held a quart and a half. Is that
There's
good?
how it began in the one side, and then there's Jerry going up, it looks like a steep hill or something.
No, it's a big rock. There's about a foot and a half rock right here.
Well, I can tell you guys, as you know, I used to road race when I was a little bit younger, and I never thought nothing about going around bends at 90 with your knees dragging, but I tried trials a couple of times. I now have the dubious honor of being called the one section wonder. They usually have like 4 sections, and then there'll be 10 little individual trials inside a section. Then you ride from one to the other. Well, I managed to end up doing one section for an entire year. So they called me the one section wonder, and it was pretty bad. But I'll tell you what, it is extremely difficult, especially when you take like Bob Wenzel, Ted Guthrie, and those guys were running what they call vintage bikes. So they're built in the mid 70s, and they had drum brakes. And I don't like things that don't stop, and that's really a vintage bike is like that. They get water in the drum brakes. Yeah, that's right. But it's very difficult to control, and you have to have a precise set of skills to be able to ride trials, and balance is obviously key. And then you have to have a lot of daring do as well too. I mean, you might be going up steep hills. You might be going down hills that are so steep you're sitting on the fender. You might have to stand up. and take your bike over a boulder that's maybe the size of a big bay window. I mean, so Jerry, tell us a little bit about what modern trials is like now for a lot of these young people, and then we're going to get to your family and your sons and how well they have done as well.
Well, right now trials is pretty scary. If you buy a modern trials bike, not only do they rev to 5,000-6,000 RPMs, and these guys rev the motor. Now these are the pros, and even the amateurs and experts. They want you to go up a rock as big as this chair or twice as big as this chair, depending on what class you ride.
From a dead stop.
Yeah. Well, most likely they're not going to give you a straight run at it. They're gonna make a turn. So you have to turn, and then if they don't have a no stop rule, while you're turning, now you're going to give it a lot of gas, but don't spin the rear wheel. Get that front end up, hit it on the face of the rock, then the rear tire hits the rock, and it climbs the rock, and then you shut the gas off, and the front end comes down, and you're on top of the rock. And then they probably have another obstacle for you before you're going to come to the end cards.
Right.
It's incredible the talents that these little peanut kids. I mean, you should see these little 7-8-year-olds ride these little bikes. They are incredible.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, they haven't been hurt. They don't have any fear, and when they do get hurt, they recover pretty darn quickly. So,
even when they break a bone, one guy broke 2 bones.
Oh,
Yeah, both wrists.
oh my God.
Yeah.
Let me guess, gripping on like that, probably. Yeah. Oh no. Yeah.
Now, Jerry, tell us a little bit about 1972, that championship season. Tell us how you went out and earned the national championship.
Well, I actually won the expert class several years before that, and I didn't know that you had to enter, and you had to pay to have your points collected. Well, I didn't know that rule, so I rode pretty much the whole year, and I actually thought I won the championship. This was a year before I became national champion, but I went to the trophy presentation, and there wasn't any trophy there with my name on it, and I'm scratching my head, and I said, "What the heck?" Well, you didn't tell us you wanted us to count your points. You give us $10 and we'll count your points, and then be in the running. Well, guess what? I really was mad, and I said, okay, one stupid mistake, and nobody told me that I needed to do that. So the next year, I paid the thing, and I come out with a win, and I won the championship. And the funny part is, I only thought I was competing for the points to win Candy Town and Central Pennsylvania, and District 6 took in New Jersey as well.
Okay.
But here, so one thing I didn't know was that the AMA, unbeknownst to anybody in the trials world, they were starting to count the points nationally. So lo and behold, partway into the winter in January or February, I get this package in the mail. Eastern Regional Champion and National Champion.
Wow. I
got those 2 plaques, and I said, I'm scratching my head, and I didn't even know that there was such a thing. And so crazy how that happened, but it happened.
Probably made your year too. Just you get a package in the mail like that you didn't expect to get with an extra plaque, so to speak.
Well, no, there was an Eastern Regional Champion.
Yeah.
They had 2 championships, Eastern Regional and a National Championship, and I didn't know I was competing in either one of them.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Jerry, we're going to get to your sons after this next question, but you've got a long history of riding competition. And I'd like you to think about how it was back then and how it is now. And of course, we're going to bring your sons in to talk about the now part. But the difference is both positive and negative of how competition is today versus what it was like back in your day when you were competing.
Well, I've had the opportunity throughout the years when they started the NATC, North American Trials Council, to be invited to join that in 1964. And I'm sorry, 1974. And so I've been involved in making trials happen nationally. And so at any rate, there was several classes that you could join and ride nationally. And, it's phenomenal how it grows. And there's several classes for you to ride, and you drive from here maybe to California, and there's 2 nationals in California, one in Arizona, one in Kansas, and maybe Rhode Island or something in Pennsylvania. So they try to get 8 to 10 rides so that you truly have a national champion, where I compete against you, you're in Ohio, and you have to come to California to defend. And
Right.
that's how it is right now. No matter
Well, you
what.
you look back to, like, when I would talk to some of the road racers, when I had the radio show, and we would talk about how it was in the beginning and how it is now. And I think the main theme is that it's not one for all and all for one. It's me for me. And that's probably because it is so competitive in the upper levels, money wise and sponsorship wise, that you've got to worry about you. Where you talk to a Mark Lawwell or some of those guys back in the day, and everybody would kind of help everybody. Of course, the purses weren't what they are now. But do you see that now? Trials, I'm not real sure if there's big paying classes in that. And I suppose this is a good point to talk about your 2 sons, Michael and Ryan, correct?
Correct. Well, yes, it is. There is no money in trials, and that's the way Wilkes Wagner is the guy that started the NATC, and that's what he wanted. He wanted to keep it that way so that trials could be an Olympic sport. And we had that chance a few years back, and because we kept the money out of it, and I wasn't a paid rider and Ryan wasn't either, that way we were ready to go. And I don't know what the boggle up was, that maybe they didn't want motorsports and like running pole vaulters and all that. So maybe they didn't want motorsports to be in the Olympics.
For the summer games this past year, they had BMX bicycle racing, men and women, and it was thrilling because my middle son Corey was nationally, he was #1 in Ohio 3 or 4 years in a row as an expert. We used to travel literally around the country, and every couple of days after Christmas, all the riders from all the states would convene at the Hyatt Regency in Columbus. And what a spectacular thing. There was a parc fermé for bicyclists. Once you impound your bike, it's impounded. And, if you were #1 in your state as an 8-year-old, you're racing against the #1s in every one of the other states. And you go through, and finally you get to the A main. And we were really lucky that, and he was sponsored, stuff like that. But I wanted to talk to you about your 2 sons, both Mike and Ryan. Both were accomplished riders, but it seems like Ryan took it a little bit further, and he's 7-time national champion.
National champion in a row.
Wow.
Okay.
And nobody's ever done that. So he's still today holds that record. Somebody used to come in from Europe and take the championship away. So to get 6 in a row,
Right.
European, and Ryan did compete against some Europeans and sent them home with a tail between their legs. And but Ryan also rode bicycle trials. And I can't think of the guy's name. He lived in California. Just beat him by a couple points. But to watch these bicycles do this, try to do the same things we're doing with motorcycles is incredible. And
Absolutely.
my son Mike, he decided to go into the Army when he was 16 or so years. Oh, I guess you had to be 18. So anyway, he went into service and put 22 years into service. And when he came out, him and Ryan and Mike rode the Ute Cup, which is in Colorado. And Jeff Aaron, Ryan, and Mike, I think Jeff and Ryan were tied at 0, and my son Mike was at 2. And Ryan said, "Dad, it was the best feeling in the world to Jeff Aaron's 10-time national champion, but not in a row." Mm-hmm. He said to be tie or 1 point behind Jeff Aaron and to be tie with my son Ryan, he said, "I feel great." And here, he put 22. He was out of the picture. When you're in service, the service does not want you injuring yourself while you're on leave. So
they own you.
Yeah. Well, I want to say this though. We've had the Pentons on before, and they're one of the most iconic families in motorcycling in America. I would certainly put the Youngs right up next with the Pentons on the accomplishments and what you've done for motorcycling, trials in particular. Now, when you look at Ryan's career, and Ryan continues to host schools and give back to the motorcycling community, talk a little bit about the trials and tribulations, the good and the bad of, as a father who was a national champion. We see dads, and sometimes they're great, and sometimes they're the worst thing in the world. I get a guy like Bob Wenzel, whose son Quinn is a professional hard enduro racer. Before that was a top flight trials. There's a family, him and Diane were great. Bob used to race, and there was never pressure put on that kid. We gave him all of the ability as far as tools, rider, equipment, education, and now it's up to my son to go out and do something with it. And I sense that you were kind of like that as a dad, that, you would help and this and that, but you weren't kind of the guy that would shove one of your kids into it, whether he liked it or not. So talk about that father-son relationship and how you built upon that, and how eventually Ryan became 6-time consecutive national champion out of that relationship.
Well, I used to come home from work. I worked for the gas company for 30 years. And I'd come home from work, and, in the wintertime, it gets kind of dark early and everything.
Sure.
And then it snows. And, it was the best thing in the world to come home and have a son that not only had his own trials bike, he was geared up to be the best. And it took him for, I don't know, Ryan might have been 16 when he finally beat me. I mean, I was an obstacle for him. Not only did I want him to ride, but he had to prove that he had to beat me. I was District 6 champion and 1972 national champion, but it's not the same. But at any rate, we would ride one section, and we had to, I told him, I have to ride that section 5 times perfectly without putting my foot down. And when I can do that, then I move on to a more difficult section. Because once you can ride a section without putting your feet down, it's obviously too